Hello again from Green Island Gardens. It's a windy autumnal day, but I'm going to share with you the 10 shrubs that I consider to be the best. So carrying on with our series of the 10 best plants. Behind me is one of my favourites. It's a hamamelis. We do have a national collection of hamamelis here, so we've got about 100 different ones. So it's quite difficult for me to select just one. In fact, I'm going to show you two. But if I had to choose just one hamamelis to have in my garden, it would probably be this one. This is Hamamelis ex intermedia pallida. Pallida because it has pale lemony yellow, spidery shaped flowers in the winter, and they have the most beautiful fruity, spicy fragrance. And they persist for about 2 or 3 months through the coldest winter months. The flowers are totally unspoiled by whatever the winter weather might throw at them. So that I think gives them a really good positive attribute. When the leaves come in, they're lovely, typical hazel shaped leaves, green, and then they colour to this beautiful buttery yellow colour in the autumn. Occasionally it will start flowering really early, sometimes as the leaves are falling. I can't see any yet this year, but some years we get probably about 4 months flowering out of it. It creates a nice wide open branching shrub. This one has been here now for about 27 years, so it's fully mature. They can be kept smaller if you've got a really small garden. They can be grown in pots and they can be pruned down to keep them to a much smaller size. But if you have got the space to allow them to show their full glory, then go for it. This is the other hamamelis that I would select. It's called Hamamelis vernalis Sandra. Slightly smaller leaves, and the flowers are much smaller and less significant, less prominent and scented as the ex intermedia cultivars, but nevertheless spidery orange flowers in the spring, beautiful leaf shape, nice open typical hamamelis habit. But in terms of autumn colour, I think this one has the best colour you can get. It's really spectacular. It's quite early to colour, and as you can see, a lot of the leaves have gone in the gales we've had over the last few days, but nevertheless those hanging on are still a really beautiful red colour. This is another lovely evergreen shrub, Leptospermum Scoparium Red damask. Common name is the New Zealand tea tree, and I believe that you can make tea from it. It's a lovely evergreen shrub with aromatic foliage, absolutely gorgeous, and tinted deep burgundy red at the tips of the growths. It tends to have an upright habit, and that lends it to being grown, as I have done here, as a wall shrub. It likes a south-facing sunny spot and a well-drained soil, so a nice warm spot. In fact, leptospermums are sadly the only things that we have lost in the past in the coldest winters. I love it so much, I've actually grown it as a hedge in front of our nursery area. And as I say, that is the only thing that we've lost in the really cold winters down to -10, -15. But we didn't lose them this winter, which was great. So give it a protected spot and it's well worth growing. But the real beauty of it is the tightly bound flowers, crimson flowers that it has intermittently through the year, but then peaks in about June and makes it an absolute picture. There are different colours, but red damask is my absolute favourite. This is Kinus Kinus atrapera. The purple smoke bush is a common name. You can see it has these beautiful, beautiful, deep purple leaves and this gorgeous red margin to them. And sometimes the leaves throw all sorts of strange motley coloured colours in the autumn as they change. This one I actually pruned back every year, coppice it right back to a stump, cut all these branches down almost to the ground. So you can see all this growth, all these shoots are this year's growth. And I've done that purely to get the foliage effect. And you can see the size of these leaves here. I'm just going to remove one because we'll show you in a moment a comparison with the same plant that I have where I don't prune it. But this one, as I say, I prune it back every year. The new growth, when it emerges, is the most vibrant, reddy purpley colour, which glistens in the sunshine. It colours beautifully in the autumn, but the only sacrifice I make by treating this plant like this is that we don't actually get the plumes of lovely fluffy pink seed heads that you typically see on a smokebush plant. But I don't mind because I've got one growing elsewhere in the garden which produces the flowers for me. But excellent plant for foliage effect, lovely shrub, and you can keep it in check in size by pruning it this way every year. So this is the other Cotinus that I have in the garden. This one was actually here when we moved here and already mature, so I didn't coppice it back. This one you can see has still got remains of the fluffy seed heads, those pink flowers, well, the flowers followed by the fluffy seed heads that resemble candy floss, and makes it a real picture in the summer. But as I explained, look at the difference in the leaf size. By pruning the newer one, we get leaves that are sort of 4 or 5 times the size and much more intense in colour, and we get much better autumn colour. So if you've got the space, it's lovely to be able to grow them in both different ways. So another shrub which is part of one of our national collections. This is Chamelia Sanqua, Hugh Evans. Chamelia Sanqua is synonymous with autumn flowering camellia. A lot of people aren't actually aware that there are a whole set of camellias that flower in the autumn as opposed to the spring. They tend to have smaller flowers than the spring flowering ones, smaller leaves as well, and often the foliage is an attractive red burgundy colour when it comes into growth in the spring. But these flower throughout the autumn. Most of them have single flowers. This one in particular has beautiful prominent yellow stamens. But one of the real beauties of these autumn flowering camellias is that they're beautifully scented. It's a sweet, delicate fragrance, not one that's too overpowering or in your face. But the shrub tends to be absolutely covered in flowers over a really long period. You can see the progression of buds we've got waiting here to come after these flowers. The other beauty of the autumn flowering camellias is that they don't tend to be spoilt by the frost such as the spring ones do. Once these have passed, the flowers drop to the ground and don't leave a mess as the spring ones do, and then later ones come afterwards. They are also slightly more tolerant of less than favourable conditions for traditional camellias, so they don't have to have an acidic soil, and they also tolerate full sun much better than the spring flowering ones. In fact, they flower better with quite a bit of sun on them. They do need adequate moisture during the growing season when the buds form, but as long as they get that, you will be rewarded with a profusion of flowers sweetly scented for months through the autumn when there's not a lot else flowering in the garden. They're also really versatile shrubs, and they can quite easily be grown as a hedge and clipped formally or informally, but definitely worth giving a try. Nandina domestica, the sacred bamboo. It's one of the best shrubs in my opinion in design terms. It ticks so many boxes. It's a lovely evergreen shrub. It has a nice architectural shape. It has beautiful evergreen leaves with lots of divided leaflets here. It has panicles of white flowers in the spring, and these are followed by berries which start this sort of greeny colour, and they ripen up to orange, finally to red by Christmas time. And the birds don't like the berries at all. So the berries stay on the shrub sometimes for up to 12 months. And you can see here, some of last year's berries have been here and a full 12 months. Excellent for Christmas decorations and wreaths as well. And an extra bonus, the foliage even colours up nicely in the autumn as well. In some conditions, it might form a more suckering habit, but here in the gravel, it's very well behaved. This specimen has been here now for over 15 years, and this is the height it's achieved. It needs absolutely zero maintenance. It's not troubled by any pests and diseases. So as I said, it just ticks so many boxes. Wonderful shrub. It's very difficult to select just one Nandina because there's such a good family of plants. So I'm going to include a couple more Nandinas, which I shall show you in a moment. So this is Nandina domestica Firepower, an excellent small growing rounded shrub. Beautiful habit it has. Really pretty leaflets in these gorgeous colours. The new growth comes in the middle of summer, sort of greeny colour, and matures over the next few months until we get these lovely fiery bright red colours. And these persist right through the winter and through next summer. So the bush, the shrub, for about 11 months of the year takes on this lovely bright glowing colour. In the middle of winter it looks absolutely spectacular. Excellent planted in groups of 3. Again, it needs no maintenance. It makes an excellent cut plant, cut material for Christmas wreaths and decorations, and I've been known to have it in the house for up to 3 months until Easter before I've needed to throw it away. It may say on the labels that it will produce flowers and followed by berries, but for me it never has. But I'm quite happy just to grow it for the foliage effect alone. And this is the third Nandina I'm going to show you, although there are lots more different cultivars. But this one is a sort of cross between Domestica and Firepower just over there. This one is Nandina Domestica Gulf Stream, and it forms a much more compact evergreen shrub than straight Domestica. Unlike Firepower, it's the new leaves that come in with the bright colours on them on this one. So you can see these new leaves come in sort of burgundy and then take on these red hues, and those again will persist for a good 12 months on the shrub. Again, this one will tell you it might produce berries and flowers, but for me it hasn't done. Here we've got a clump of 3 growing, and they've been here for about 10-15 years. About 2 years ago I decided they got slightly large and out of proportion with the rest of the planting, so we literally cut right back into the shrub and took about 1/3 of the height off them, which brought them much better into proportion. And it was only a couple of weeks until they'd greened up again, and you would never have known. But again, just like the other Nandinas, pest and disease resistant, absolutely no maintenance required. So brilliant shrubs to have in your garden. Daphne Balua Jacqueline Postel. Now this is probably in my top 3 all-time plants. It's an absolutely beautiful plant. It produces an evergreen shrub, fairly upright growing, but the main beauty of it is the beautiful scented flowers, clusters of flowers with a purpley bud opening to sort of pale pinky purple colour. And they emerge usually from about Christmas time. I can find a couple, just enough to bring in the house, and they go on flowering right through January, February and March. So a good 3 months of beautifully scented flowers. It releases the scent over a large area. So from about 20 yards away, you can actually smell the Daphne before you can see it. In design terms, it's got beautiful evergreen foliage. It has long-lasting fragrant flowers, resistant to pests and diseases. It's excellent for wildlife. It's covered in pollinating insects for 3 months in the winter. And as I say, I just wouldn't be without it. Sarah Raven, who writes for lots of gardening magazines and columns, very well recognised garden designer, writer, she reckons that you should never be able to go more than 30 yards in a garden without smelling a Daphne. And in fact, I have to agree with her. I just love taking huge branches off it and bringing them into the house where it will scent all the rooms in the middle of winter. I have worked out that, well, it's an ambition of mine to now make it that you can't go more than 30 yards without smelling a Daphne at Green Island, but it's going to cost me a lot of dollars or a lot of years until we propagate enough Daphnes to do that over our 20 acres. But we are trying. And in those winter months, it really is worth visiting the gardens just to experience the scent of the Daphnes. Loropetalum's another excellent evergreen shrub. And a lot of people, when I say evergreens, they'll think about laurels and privets and yews, things that are green all year round. But there's a lot of shrubs that provide purple leaf colour but retain their leaves through the winter as well. And these are really valuable shrubs in design terms because they're giving you that lovely contrast in colours of foliage. Loropetalums are not often grown, and it's probably because they have a reputation of not being fully hardy. This one is called Black Pearl, and it is my favourite one. The leaves are sort of rounded and particularly dark coloured, glow beautifully in the sunlight, which unfortunately this one isn't in. The common name for them is the Chinese witch hazel. Their main period of flowering is in the spring, when they have an absolute profusion of pink, deep pink, crimson, spidery flowers reminiscent of a witch hazel or hamamelis, but these are not related at all. They do then go on intermittently producing flowers throughout the whole season. As you can see here, we're almost into November and it's still showing one. Now, as I say, they have a reputation for not being fully hardy. However, this one survived last winter's cold and wet. I have others that have survived down to -15 as well. So they can be hardy as long as they're not planted in a really waterlogged area or exposed too much to cold northerly winds. But what I tend to do is when I newly plant them, just for the first couple of winters, give them a little bit of protection. So a little bit of fleece or a plastic cover with some fleece over the top of it, just to get them through those first couple of winters. Now I have got another Loropetalum, Fire Dance, which is more hardy, which has grown to its full size, which I'm going to show you now. So I'm showing you this Loropetalum because it's much taller and it's a mature specimen. This one's called Fire Dance, and the flowers on it are a paler pink colour than Black Pearl. That's why I particularly like Black Pearl, but this one I think is definitely more hardy. You can see it's been untouched by several cold winters, but the leaves are a very different shape on it, but it goes on producing its pink flowers right through the season. Excellent group of evergreen shrubs. So deep in the woods here, this is a lovely shrub, Cornus kuza chinensis. Flowering dogwood is its common name, so not to be confused with the Cornus that a lot of people grow for winter stem colour. They're completely different Cornus. These ones prefer a woodland setting with a moist but well-drained soil and slightly acidic if possible, but they will grow in a neutral soil. They have small rounded green flowers in the spring, end of May into June, and they're surrounded by 4 white bracts, each flower, cluster of flowers. So it makes an absolute picture in the spring when it's covered in these white bracts that almost resemble the Davidia, the handkerchief tree. After that, the flowers develop into these curious looking strawberry-like fruits here, which are actually edible. A lot of people don't believe me, but I will try one. They're a bit insipid, but the birds do like them. And as I say, they are edible, but really another attractive feature to the plant. And then following this, the leaves will colour up beautifully, give you lovely reds and oranges before they fall in autumn. So a shrub with lots and lots of seasons of interest. This is another one of my favourite shrubs, an absolute staple that I use in every garden that I design for people. It's called Pittosporum Tom Thumb. It again produces this lovely rounded, really well-behaved shaped shrub with small, gorgeous purple leaves that are evergreen. The new growth you can see here comes in this lovely bright green colour, and then it matures, especially really well in sunshine, to give you this lovely purple glowing effect. You can see on the one just to the right here, we haven't got as much new growth showing on that one. All the new growth has turned purple, but it's a real favourite with flower arrangers, and as I say, a staple shrub for me. You'll notice that I have included a lot of evergreens in my list of top 10 shrubs, but hardly any of them actually have green leaves. And by using lots of shrubs with foliage colour like this and evergreen, it gives you a really good background or palette to build up the foundation of your garden, and then you can add in the flowers, the bulbs and the perennials as the added extras afterwards. Scent is something that's really important for me in the garden, and my last selection of shrub is this one, Saka Caka confusa. A lovely evergreen shrub again, a nice habit, lovely glossy green leaves, and you can see here the little flower buds starting to form. It has spidery white flowers that usually open in January, February time. And again, as with lots of winter flowering scented shrubs, it releases its scent over a large area and also flowers for a very long time, You get this because the temperatures aren't too high at that time of year, and they need to attract pollinators in order to get their flowers pollinated to produce berries and reproduce themselves. So you get particularly good value from scented winter flowering shrubs. In contrast, something like a jasmine in the summer will flower maybe for a couple of weeks because there's lots of pollinators around. Winter months, very few pollinators because it's so cold. They flower over a long period to increase their chances of pollination. But as I said, these lovely spidery flowers come and adorn the branches horizontally. They hang down for months in the winter, and this can be detected, the scent of this, for up to 30-40 yards away. It's a really good plant to put somewhere near to your house so that you really appreciate it in the depths of winter on those horrible, cold, dark mornings and evenings. And following the flowers you get here, lovely berries form as well, which start off green, mature through red, and finally end up a glossy black colour. So really another attractive thing which persists on the shrub long after the flowers have gone. And finally, another really good aspect of this shrub is that it's really good at not minding where it's planted. It will tolerate some of the most inhospitable soil conditions, and it doesn't need sun. In fact, this has stayed a lovely glossy green colour in this quite dark corner here. So plant it in a little corner close to the house, maybe north facing, where you're going to appreciate it, and it will cover up a patch of soil where nothing else might grow for you. Anyway, that's my roundup of my 10 or maybe a few more favourite shrubs that I would recommend for the garden. So thank you for watching once again, and please remember to like and subscribe our channel.